What's going on, everybody? We got your host not in the building today. Matt's at work again tonight, so I'm going to try to run this thing the best I can. I got my cousin in with me, and everybody, welcome back to the Cruise Dynasty podcast. Ian, what you got going on tonight, bud?
What up, man? Sitting here talking about the fake stuff, taking a couple sips on this fucking Jim Beam, and over here trying not to overreact on some of these guys, dude. I've been wanting to get back on here since the season started, and I'm super excited about this episode, bro. So let's just chat it up, man.
All right. We're going to hit a couple things. This is going to be more of a chill episode. We're just going to talk about we're going to mention some injuries, some waiver wire stuff. We're a little late on the waiver wire because I'm sure most of them run tomorrow, and this will drop after. So maybe we'll talk about some post waiver wire ads, some people that might, some real sleepers right now that you might want to add to your team. And we're just going to talk about the state of fantasy right now. If your drafts went well, how you drafted, was it efficient? Do you think that it's time to change up? Kind of stuff like that. So let's just go ahead and start it off with the thing that's on everybody's mind. Nick Chubb last night. Absolutely devastating. One of my favorite players in all the NFL. And just a terrible injury. They couldn't even show it on TV. But it looks like in fantasy that you're going to be without him for a long time. And Ian, I know you got some stuff to say about it. What do you want to say about it, and how are you going to approach it in Dynasty now?
The Nick Chubb situation?
Yes.
Man, dude, that, for one, seeing a Georgia dog go down is never good. And for two, seeing somebody like Nick Chubb go down is even worse, man, because I said at the beginning of the season, dude, he is product of consistency. You know what I mean? You draft Chubb, you can forget it. It's a spot you get and forget. And we forgot that people can get injured. And this is huge because there's not another running back in that backfield that's really worth the pickup in my eyes right now. Because I don't think the team's going to do good enough to support a back with less skills than Nick Chubb. You get what I'm saying? Like Jerome Ford, he's good. He's a handcuff, but he's not going to be your RB1. You know what I mean? It's a kill blow for a lot of people, man. And from a dynasty standpoint, dude, that's hard because Chubb's getting up there in the age, and if I had him, I'd probably try to get rid of him right now. Honestly, and stop the bleeding a little bit. Because if he comes back and does crap, if you hold on to him for a year and he comes back and does terrible, then it's just going to be a brick. So I don't know, man. What do you think?
I mean, you can't get rid of him right now. Nobody's going to buy him. So, I mean, the best thing
In
you
Dynasty?
can do is, nobody's going to go buy Nick Chubb. This isn't a buy low situation. His career, I mean, he's older than J.K. Dobbins. People are saying his career is pretty much done, and you can't trade him for a third. So, I don't think that Nick Chubb at this point in his career you're just going to have to hold and throw him in your IR spot and wait for the news to keep coming. And he could just retire after this. Who knows? But I don't know how devastating it is. But it just looks like you're stuck holding the Nick Chubb bag right now. But I mean, that's one thing. That's one thing we got to talk about too, is just running back landscape with the injuries. I mean, Saquon,
Lord,
you got J.K. Dobbins, who went down with an Achilles. Austin Eckler was out last week, and they're saying that he has no timetable to come back. He might be out another week or two. All these guys that were talking about getting paid, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs had 9 rushes for -2 yards the other day. Chubb's out. He wasn't really talking about getting paid, but Saquon's hurt, like I said. So, I mean, do you have any changing of opinion on Are you gonna think about this when you're drafting next year and redraft, or is it just one of them things that's just hopefully you avoided the injury bug at running back? Because I mean, look at the opposite side at receivers. No big name receivers have gone out yet, except for Cooper Kupp in the preseason. So,
Right.
I mean, what do you think
But we
about
know.
this?
Think about what exactly?
Just think, what do you think about the running backs and spending high draft capital on them in your drafts, knowing that the injury risk is so much higher?
Okay, that is a good question though. That's a good, and I feel like it takes a two-part answer. Um, I feel like the injury risk being really high. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost forces you into having to draft because you got to have the depth at running back. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
injury, like maybe it's hard to say, but yeah, you got to have the depth, and so I think it can really go either way. You know what I mean? If it because I mean they go down all the time, dude, and it's next man up, and so if you don't have that depth at that position, then it can really, really put you on a back foot. Whereas if Jamar Chase goes down and you throw in Tyler Lockett, or something like that, it's not going to be as devastating as Nick Chubb going down and you throwing in
Jerome
uh,
Ford.
Jerome Ford or Chuba Hubbard or whatever, whoever. Yeah, it's the and that is my take on it. You know what I mean? I don't think you ever lose out when you get a good running back because, like you said, they get hurt a lot, and you got to have that depth, man. And that's what's kind of killing me in one of our leagues right now. Is I got depth, but it's not. I don't know. It's a little sketchy, so I'm hoping it's going to pan out.
Yeah, I mean drafting receivers early. I mean it's kind of working out. It looks like the way to go as of right now. But I mean, if you started off, if you got Jamar Chase right now, you're probably not real happy. I mean, things have probably changed, but like AJ Brown, he's had a couple down games. So not all the receivers are hitting either. Garrett Wilson took a major lick with Rodgers going down, and that's another thing that receivers rely on too is quarterback health too. So I
Right.
mean, I've just been thinking about running backs in general. Like the guy I'm playing this weekend in the Yahoo League, I look at his team and I'm like, golly, what a stacked team. I'm gonna probably get my ass kicked. But I mean, he's got Josh Allen at quarterback, he's got Tyreek, and he's got Cooper Kupp getting ready to come back. But
Mm.
his receivers are gonna be Tyreek, Puka, DK Metcalf, and Cooper Kupp when he comes back. But I mean, his running backs, he didn't spend any draft capital, but he's sitting there rocking Raheem Mostert, who's been great.
Mm-hmm.
Kyron Williams, who you pick up off the waiver wire,
Mm-hmm.
and Javonte Williams, who you drafted late. So,
Yeah.
I guess my question to you is, what is easier to find during the year that can win you your league off the waiver wire? Is it receivers or is it running backs?
Yes.
I feel like running backs this year in particular – you're having some breakouts off the waiver wire. Like, I mean, Zach Moss last week had like 18, 19 points. Kyron Williams has been going off, and people spent a 5th round, 6th round pick on Cam Akers. Just, just tell me what you think about that.
I think um I think it's way easier to find receivers to fill the void than to find running backs to fill the void because you named so the running backs that I feel like you could have picked up in the last couple of weeks that can still win you your league, not just a 4th flex spot or a 3rd flex spot. You know what I mean? There's Joshua Kelly maybe, you know, just Justice Hill, and Gus Edwards possibly, to fill that. What who and there's really not them there. Kyron Williams. He's someone you picked up and is probably doing great. Is going to
He
do
might
great.
be the best. he might be the best one right now. Like
The
I would
best
put
waiver
him
pickup for sure. And that reminds me, sorry to interrupt, but that reminds me, a few years ago when Alvin Kamara was, a rookie, and nobody was really talking about it, and picked him up first round, but it doesn't happen as often. I feel like as with receivers, you know what I mean? Because I mean, look, you got Puka that showed out, but I already kind of knew about Puka, and I kind of wish I would have got on him, but I'm still. But who knows when Cup comes back? I think Tutu Atwell might actually be the recipient of the good hand when Cup comes back. But I mean, there was a lot of receivers that you didn't know about, you didn't think about, like Nico Collins and Josh Reynolds and I'm just kind of scrolling through here. Kendrick Bourne's kind of showing it. Raheem Shaheed, Jacoby Myers is possibly great, and all these people are showing out. Whereas when you go to the running backs, I mean, there's nobody, dude. There's nobody to get. Kyron Williams was the guy, and
Jerome
now
Ford
and
might be.
yeah, Jerome Ford could possibly do something, and but other than that, it's hard to say, So I think it's very vital. Roshan Johnson might possibly do something later. Zach Moss was a good pickup, but we never know what's going on with him. But other than that, dude, Jalen Warren, but most people probably drafted him, and it's tough. It's tough when you don't have the running backs, But yeah, to answer the question, I think it's easier to acquire receivers later on
Than a running
than to
back.
get running backs. Yeah,
Yeah, because there's usually like maybe one a week, and most people are doing waivers. So if you don't have the first waiver priority, you're not getting Jerome Ford. I mean, sorry about it. He's going to
yep,
be the number one waiver priority this week, unless Kyron is somehow out there, which I doubt it. He should have been. I would think
shouldn't
he was
be. Yeah,
gone. I would think should have been gone last week. Um,
yeah,
and I don't know whether I agree with you or not. I mean, it's really. I think running backs, as far as the waiver wire goes, are more likely to be spot starts. Like you can start AJ Dillon when Aaron Jones misses a game.
hmm
You can start Jerome Ford if Nick Chubb were to miss time, but I mean, they could bring Kareem Hunt in, they could bring somebody else in, and still work. Like most of the time, when your starting guy goes down, if Saquon goes down, a lot of people are going to be rushing to Matt Breida, and it probably is going to end up being some kind of committee, and you're probably
yeah.
going to get trapped into starting Breida, and you're going to be pissed when it doesn't
Pissed,
work out.
right?
Or even Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. It's like you might not ever be happy starting any of them
Either
guys. I
one of
mean,
them.
Gus Edwards had 10 carries for like 60 yards last week and a touchdown. That's great and all, but if he don't score a touchdown with no receptions, that's 6 points, and you're not going to be happy
Hmm
with it. So, like
Yeah,
everybody
but
rushes to it, but it just doesn't. It sometimes just don't always pan out like that for sure.
yeah, and to your point that we were trying to make, I think you have a better chance of finding a quote unquote league winner on the waiver wire at receiver, but I think that you have, I think it's more vital to grab those running backs because after the first few weeks, dude, there's not, everything's going to be figured out. It's going to be committees, and then you got what you got when it comes to running backs. I feel like,
Yeah, I'm just scared because the last couple years, I mean, pretty much half of the first round running backs are done, or have gotten injured already. I mean, McCaffrey's still kicking, and then Chubb's out, Saquon's hurt right now, and I mean Bijan's hitting it hard, but it's and as
yeah,
far as the receivers go, I mean Chase hadn't done much, but Tyreek, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, all these guys are kind of putting up what you kind of expected from receivers. So I don't think there's a rhyme or reason to drafting. Like, I mean, you can go either direction. Like, you can go running back heavy, you can go wide receiver heavy, but you got to hit later in your draft on some of these guys, and you have to pick the right people off the waiver wire to stand a
Yep.
chance, because you can make as many pickups as you want, but if they're, like I said a minute ago, they might just be traps. Like, I'm sure Puka Nakua, every league that I'm in, he got picked up after week 1, but he didn't get started in week 2 because people were thinking that it could be a fluke. They want to see
Right.
another week. So they missed out on a good week of Puka, and now everybody's probably going to be in. Like, he's in my starting lineup this week, but he wasn't last week. So,
Same thing
um,
for me with Josh Reynolds. You know what I mean? Like I picked him up week 1, and I was like, he might be pretty good. And then, last week he did pretty good, and so I think I'm gonna throw him in the flex this week.
so what do you look for most of the time on the, like, me personally, receivers on the waiver wire? I'm looking for teams that have a lot of passing volume, that are playing from behind, and I'm looking at targets for receivers. I'm not necessarily looking at, like Marvin Mims, for example. He had like 2 catches for 113 and a touchdown. I mean, that's great and all, but that's not something you can
That's
rely on
yeah,
on a week. I'd rather have somebody like, even like Devontae Parker. You could pick him up. First game back this year, had 6 targets, 5 receptions. So,
yeah.
it's kind of, and Nico Collins. I mean, the targets have been pretty outstanding so far. So these are some of the guys that you want to look out for, is the players who are getting targets, because targets is an earned stat, and you don't get thrown the ball to when you're not open. So,
Right, right. You answered the question you were asking me. I look for percentage of snaps played and targets. Because eventually, if you're on the field, that means they like you. And if you're getting targets, that means the quarterback trusts you. Eventually, you're going to come to fruition. You know what I mean? Eventually, them hands are going to tighten up, unless your name's Kadarius Toney, who walks around with bricks for hands. And it it's not hard to separate the good from the great. When you just break it down to the target and snap share. And then if you still have a couple guys you're trying to choose between, then I would say, go to yards per touch, and that's the next thing that is the separator. Once they have the ball in their hand, what do they do with it? So those 3 things I think is what you really need to look for when pursuing a receiver, because like you said, I mean, Marvin Mims, everyone was like, oh yeah, he's badass, and then now they're like, oh fuck this motherfucker, and you can't, and we all do it, we all buy into the, well, what is it, the peak or the, buy into the upside, and sometimes it works out, but most of the time it doesn't, and that's what fantasy football is.
all right. So while we're talking about it, I'm gonna go ahead and go through the target leaders on the year so far, and I'm gonna put a couple names out there, not the big guys, like Tyreek and stuff, but just tell me, based on just the targets, if you're in or you're out on whether you think this guy's gonna be a breakout or not. So,
First of all,
one,
hold on.
okay.
The name if you're about to do the number one in targets, then this is it's fucking crazy. Okay, what this anyway? Go ahead.
Well, number one is Puka Nakua at 35 targets, and Justin Jefferson is number 2 at 25. Um, so just tell me, are you completely in on Puka? Because I am. I'm in. Even when Cooper Kupp comes back, it's not going to be this hefty, but a rookie that's showing this kind of promise is something that you can't. I just feel like you can't just shy away from and act like it's not happening.
If this was a segment that we called the emoji segment, I'd have the dude that's with the orange face and all the exclamation points and stuff over his mouth because I'm mad I didn't get Puka, man. And yeah, I mean, he broke the rookie record for targets, I think, in 2 games, and and yeah, I think you're right. When Cup comes back, I don't think he's really. I know it says something about Tutu Atwell, and they're both good. They're both recipients, and I give it up to McVay. Everybody was chitter chatter. This team's terrible, and he came out, he put his head down, and he, Matt Stafford looks good, and that offense is clicking, dude, and Puka is definitely going to be a big part of it from here going out, man. I definitely like that.
Oh yeah, I think okay. Well, what does it take to get Puka in Dynasty, and what do you feel comfortable offering, and what do you feel comfortable selling him for?
That's a good question. If I was trying to get him,
It'd have to be a first. It'd have to be a late,
I was
at
about
least,
to say
a late first.
I would definitely give up my first for him.
Late for, early first or mid first or
I'd give up my early first round, and when it comes to that,
so
it
you
comes
would
down
rather have
to,
Puka. You'd rather have Puka than Marvin Harrison Jr.
well, yes, but on this alone is that I've seen Puka play in the NFL, and I'm know for a fact that he's somewhere and he's getting touches, and they like, you know what I mean? Like, I have that peace of mind, Whereas with that first round pick, I don't have that peace of mind. I'm not sure I'm going to get more of it, So I think I'd rather have Puka, because you're only one more year older, you know,
So you don't
than
think
the
you're
person you.
overreacting to the first 2 weeks? You think this is he's just gonna be that good? And I'm not throwing shade at you at all. I don't know what to think about
Right.
Puka yet, but if he was a first round pick in the NFL draft, anybody would give up a first, early first, a rookie draft pick for him. But since he was drafted so late, that's the reason where people are like, this can't continue. Which 20 targets in a game is not going to continue. But
Right.
I just don't. You're not going to get him for a second. That's a foregone conclusion. I don't even know if you could get him for a late first. I think it's mid first would be like the 8th pick, the 108, 105 to 108 maybe could get it done.
Yeah.
And that's still a risk. But that 105 to 108 is going to be a risk too. So just to put names to it. So in a super flex league, the 108 was most likely, a Jordan Addison range. So you're telling me you would sell Jordan Addison for Puka Nacua right now? Because I would.
Probably not. But you're also talking about a tangible player we've seen playing in the NFL versus a tangible player we've seen playing in the NFL, And so you can't compare those as much as you want to compare this person to this pick, this future player, you know what I mean? And you don't even know if you're guaranteed to get that player, with that pick.
Well, let's
Those
put
picks
up a
are of
player.
value.
We'll put up a player that you haven't seen much of. What about Jackson Smith and Jigba? Would you trade him for Puka Nacua?
Yeah, I would right now. Yeah, I would, because, well, are we talking dynasty or redraft? I think I would in either one of them. And
Dynasty.
I think I would in either, especially in dynasty. They're both, the same age, but yeah, because I've just seen more out of Puka, and not as much out of JSN. And when it comes down to the NFL draft, Austin, I, it's starting to be more and more, more and more apparent that where you go in the draft really doesn't matter. It really doesn't.
I disagree with that completely, though.
It does, in a sense of money and hype, and obviously the players at the top. Obviously, the players at the top are. That's what I was about to say. Are going to have more opportunities, but also the people that get picked lower than them aren't necessarily less talented. You know what I mean? They just were overlooked and weren't in the right system and weren't being used correctly. You know, I mean, there are countless players that were picked out of the first round that ended up, you know, being really good, and vice versa. You know, there's a lot of players that were picked in the first round that ended up sucking. You know, and it's just becoming more apparent to me that where you get drafted by the NFL in the NFL draft doesn't really matter. I mean, it's not a perfect science by any means. You know, it's all about which player you want. You know, when it comes down to that, just like when we're drafting our drafts. You know, and just because I got, you know, Jonathan Taylor in the 5th, 6th round doesn't mean he's a bad player. It just means everybody else didn't see in him what I saw, you know, and didn't see the value. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, I understand. Like in your fantasy drafts, like after the draft, you can pretty much, and after the first couple weeks of fantasy, you be a fool to say, "Oh, I'm not gonna trade." Um, like I'm not trading Jerry Judy for Puka Nakua right now because I drafted Jerry Judy in the 5th, and Puka Nakua went undrafted. Like that gets you in a lot of trouble when you start thinking about
Yeah.
that kind of stuff after the season's already gone. It's once the season starts, you got to throw that shit out the window and say, "Look, this is the better player right now."
Okay, so
And
that's a good point. I'm glad you brought. So because I was kind of dealing with this dilemma earlier because I want Tony Pollard in our Yahoo league, and when I was trying, when I was thinking of trades, I was doing that. I was like Pollard for, you know, Herbert and Madison. You know what I mean? But I was like, but Herbert in the 6th, Madison was like way later. I was like, I don't know, and I was judging it off of where they were picked in the draft. So my question
it's
to
not,
you is,
I mean, it's not a bad thing to think about that because other your trade partner is probably going
is
to think
going
about
to, yeah, and I think that's the main reason I did that. I would be like, because they're gonna look at it like this. I don't think I necessarily look at it that way, but yeah, when you're trading with somebody, I feel like most people are gonna kind of see it that way.
Yeah, I mean it's something to think about, but as a smart player, fantasy player who's played for a long time, the best thing to do is to throw it out the window. Even I mean some people will think of that, but you shouldn't. I don't think you should think of that. And if the trade don't go
Right.
through, it don't go through, but I mean um there's already players like Mike Evans right now going the hell off. You know, people are
Yeah.
out on him right now or were out on him before the draft. Baker Mayfield was coming in, and like going back to last year, Geno Smith quarterback. And people are out on Metcalf and Lockett, and you know they ended up being great all year long. So, like,
Dude, right
you
now, go back
can't.
to Mike Evans. Just quick interjection. Would you trade Devontae if you had Mike Evans? Would you trade him for Devontae Adams right now?
No, I wouldn't trade. No, I mean, yeah, I would. I would rather have Devontae Adams. I
Okay.
mean, I mean, Devontae Adams has already shown throughout just the first 2 games this year that he's still great. I mean, he's already had 12 receptions for 150 yards. Still putting up really good numbers. But
Right.
if you
Exactly.
if you put it um, into perspective, I don't want to go like in the first 2 rounds because all them guys like AJ Brown stuff like these are like some buy low guys. I feel like right now, but I mean, if you were to say um, Mike Evans for Drake London, who got drafted 3 rounds before him, then of course, like you
Yeah.
want Mike Evans, you don't want Drake London, you know.
Right. Right.
But
But
somebody might be like, well, I drafted London above. I had the chance to get Evans, but I drafted London, so I'm gonna stick with it. It's like, no, you know, go out
yeah,
there, try to trade Drake London for Mike Evans.
and that's crazy because it goes back. It's flip flop when it's like that. If a player that you drafted way lower is balling out, you still refer to the draft, and you're like, "Oh, he went for this." You know what I mean? Like blah blah blah, and it's like No, I'm not giving Mike away for a player that went 2 rounds ahead of him. I want, a player that went in the second. Because, I feel like you could probably trade Mike Evans. Like, if I had, and I don't know how great Jalen Waddle has been doing, but I'm just going to use him as an example. I feel like if I had Jalen Waddle, I would probably trade for Mike Evans right now.
I mean,
Redraft.
it sounds crazy, but I mean, I don't think the finish is going to be that much different. I do think Jalen Waddle is more of a go try and buy this guy right now. I mean, I made a trade in my
That's a
high
good
school
point.
league. I traded Kyron Williams and Hunter Henry for Jalen Waddle today.
That was
Based,
stupid.
I know, just based. I mean, it's fantasy football. It might not work out. Maybe Kyron Williams is going to be awesome.
And it also depends on your other players on your team, your other running backs and stuff too. If you needed a receiver, then
yeah. So let's go through a couple names for these targets, like we were going to do a minute ago. Let's just based on the workload they've gotten, if you would attempt to try to get some of these guys, or if you're not worried, or if you're worried about them. So, through 2 games, Robert Woods, 19 targets. That's an average of about 9.5 targets a game. Would you go out and try to get Robert Woods on free agency right now, like on the waiver wire, or do you believe in that or not?
yeah, dude. I think I would try to go get Robert Woods right now. If he's still out there, if he's still on your waiver wire, I don't think he's going to be a league winner by any means, but I mean, from the look of the stats, and Bobby Trees is one of those. Just 2 years ago, we were, drafting him in third, fourth round, and he's a really consistent player. He's got good hands. He's kind of overlooked. He's on a bad offense, but he is doing good, and he's definitely somebody I would. And we don't use the fab, in our league, but a lot of leagues do, where you it's kind of like fantasy money or whatever. And I'd probably, I wouldn't go dropping, 80% of it on him, but he's somebody I would
Like
definitely,
5%.
15, for Robert Woods, whereas if Kyron Williams out there, I'm trying to drop the whole thing, because like we talked about, you can't find those running backs. So if there's one there that, is going to ball out, drop the load on them, but yeah, I definitely pursue Robert Woods.
All right, here's another one. Michael Thomas through 2 games, 17 targets, 116 yards. Hasn't been crazy good. I mean, fantasy points per game, even with all those targets, is still like 12 points, and that's full PPR, so even lower in half. Would you trade? Let's see, a player that would you trade Chris Godwin for Michael Thomas at this point in time?
Let me. So Michael Thomas is one of those players that when he's out there, dude, he just demands a ton of attention. And he's, I think it's hard to say. It's hard to say because both those two players, are
Pretty
both
identical the way they play.
they're really close, and they're also close in the sense that they're both kind of the wide receiver twos on their team, whereas Michael Thomas is the vet, and he's got the experience, but he also has the injury history, and it's kind of a toss up. But if we're talking redraft, I might go get Michael Thomas because I like the quarterback play there better. The Saints are a better team, so the Bucs might be throwing more. That is a good thing. But I think if it came down to it, I would probably stick with Godwin right now. because I haven't seen enough from Mike, and there's a better chance he's going to get hurt, So I'd probably stick with Godwin right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, but let's just shoot, man. Let's talk about some of these. Let's just talk about some of these guys that have not performed what you thought they were going to do, and if we're freaking the hell out about what they've done, or if we think that it's all going to be good. So one guy that I really want to talk about that I'm throwing the towel in. I mean, I'll just admit that I was probably wrong on this one as far as the season's gone so far. And I think that, it's just not going to pan out. I think I had him ranked as my like RB12. And that's Najee Harris, man. He looks bad. He looks slow. I was fighting some folks on Twitter and everywhere else about Jaylen Warren ain't going to take over. Whatever. Najee's still good, which he is tough to bring down, but he just doesn't. He kind of reminds me of Justin Fields, the running back version. It's like you can't. He's so indecisive. Like hit the hole. Like when you watch Jaylen Warren go, it's like a rocket. He just shoots off in the hole. 5 or 6. It's kind of like Aaron Jones versus AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon just kind of. He's a big dude, but he dances around too damn much. It's like go.
Yeah.
And at this point, like Najee just looks bad to me.
He does. I agree, man. I think Najee looks bad. And I was a little bit on him this year. I think he was in drafts going at his right ADP. But if you drafted him, you're pissed, And I'm glad I didn't.
Last year also, too.
Until the end. I think he's done. I think he's going to be a complimentary runner. And but I don't think he's the bell cow back like we thought he was going to be. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it has to do with the coaching or the offensive line, or if it's just he is just that indecisive, like you said, or he's in his head. But he's a big boy, and he does make explosive plays every now and then. But I'm definitely freaking out on Najee Harris right now.
And this is one of those that we talked about earlier. Like, it doesn't matter where you drafted them at, because you see these players performing. I was playing against Najee last night. I thought I was going to lose. I was up by only 25 with 3 players to play. And Najee was one of them that I was playing against, and he was the one I was least worried about. And that tells you something from, like, the outside looking in. It's like, I'm not fucking scared of Najee. He ain't going to do anything. So, as the manager of Najee, you probably are thinking the same thing. And this is a guy that you drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round in your draft. So, just for the panic meter here, 1 to 10, how much are you panicked about Najee? Because I'm at a 9 right now, or a 10.
Man, with 10 points scored 2 weeks, man. You picked him up pretty high. I mean, he was the RB44 in week 1, the RB42 in week 2.
Look at the attempts, though. This is a guy who's supposed to be a volume play. I mean, just
16 attempts in 2 weeks, man. His yards per carry was great. It's in the great range, but
that was one run, though. If you were watching the game,
that's
week
true.
1, he had a 22-yard run, and everything else was stopped behind the line of scrimmage.
You're right. I mean, he had 6 attempts, 2 targets, 10 attempts, 3 targets. Like, it's not somebody. Yeah, I'm shaking in my boots on Najee right now. Shaking in my boots.
I mean, I was watching the game last night. Najee was the starting running back, came out and didn't do much. They went into the locker room at halftime and came back out. And Jaylen Warren was the first running back on the field. He was usually playing third downs. He played every third down. Like, Najee gets up after second down, he just runs off the field. He knows he's not playing third down. But in this case, Jaylen Warren they were like, okay, we're done with Najee right now. He's not giving us no spark. Is there a chance that Jaylen Warren just completely takes over, or at least turns into like a 50-50 split, or takes 60% of the carries? Because this kind of reminds me of Melvin Gordon in the latter part of his career, and then Austin Eckler behind him.
Yeah, or Danny Whitehead and Melvin Gordon behind him, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire with Pacheco behind him, or there's tons of people, there's tons of players that's happened to, and yeah, dude, I think Jaylen Warren's gonna take the spot, dude. I think he's gonna end up taking the role, and I mean, he, like you said, he's the third down back. He had 12 targets over 2 weeks and 9 receptions. Uh, just great. He only had 9 carries over the 2 weeks, but he looks way more explosive with the ball in his hand, and Najee Harris just doesn't have that look, man. He doesn't look it. He's coming up on a contract year, probably, right? Is this his next year?
I think he's got this year and then next year. I think this is his third. This is his third year.
So
He
has one more year. He has one more year, and usually on that contract year, they fucking ball out and they blow up. But you usually see like a slight progression to that, whereas it's not happening right here. And it'd be one thing if him and Warren were both getting kind of stopped up, but Warren looks like he's got the gravy, dude, and Najee just kind of looks like he's got it made, and he ain't got it made, bro. This is the NFL, son. You perform or you get put out.
All right, so me personally, I don't think this is a buy low situation. I think Najee is. I think you should sell Najee even based on his bad performance. So, like we were talking about, you drafted him early. I'm gonna give you some names that were drafted late or picked up off the waiver wire, and tell me if you'd rather have them right now in redraft. Would you rather have Najee, or would you rather have James Cook?
Cook.
Would you rather have Najee or DeAndre Swift?
Swift, but with an asterisk.
All right, Najee or Kyron Williams?
Williams.
Whew. Connor. It's Connor, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Connor for me. Oh God. Yeah, it's getting really bad for Najee right now. I'm sure there's a couple more names that I could throw out there. Would you rather have Najee or trade him for Jerome Ford, or is that too much?
I think that's where I draw the line. Yeah, I think I'd stay with Najee on that one, man. But that's a good question, because Jerome Ford's going to be the lead back, whereas Najee Harris might not be, and Pittsburgh loves to run the ball. I always want the Pittsburgh running back, but I don't know. This thing might be a committee this year, dude.
What about, I got one more, Raheem Mostert?
I'd rather have Mostert, yeah.
Even with the injury history?
Ooh, good crap.
I think I'd rather have Mostert too, because I
think I would.
Even if Mostert gets hurt, I mean, you're going to start him and he's going to be good, and then if he gets hurt, he's going to be on your bench. Najee, you're probably going to be starting him every week and getting 5 points out of him and getting pissed every week.
Yeah, and you wishing he would just get hurt so you could drop him.
Because you're going to want to start him. You see Najee Harris, you see that name, and you're like, I'm just going to have to play him because it's Najee Harris.
Let me ask you one on a overreaction, buy low, sell high. Alexander Madison.
I'm not out yet. I do. I mean, Philadelphia is a very tough rush defense. I mean, that's like
Right.
And this isn't the exact thing, but I mean, Brees Hall and Dalvin Cook didn't do. I don't even think either one of them had 1 point last week against Dallas.
Right.
Man, ain't nobody freaking out about that. And well, maybe Dalvin Cook, but not Brees Hall, which you shouldn't freak out about it. It's good
Right.
defense. He got like 4 carries. Madison against the Eagles. There's going to be a lot of teams that their running back doesn't do much against the Eagles. And I mean, I do worry about their offensive line a little bit. They're not the best, but and the Vikings like to throw the ball more than any other team in the NFL because their defense is really bad. But I would say I would bump him down a little bit from like where you drafted him, like value wise. But I wouldn't be looking to sell Alexander Madison because what you're going to get offered is not going to be enough. If you know what I mean.
But
You're not going to get a lot for Madison, and you're not going to get offered a lot for Madison. So,
so
best
we
thing
can
to
both
do.
agree that he's a buy low candidate.
Yeah, I think he's more of like I said, you're not going to get a lot offered for him. So,
But you could get like if you know if I didn't have Madison and somebody offered me, I don't know, let me think of a receiver like Tyler Lockett. I would. I don't know. I feel like that's a
I'm
good
probably
receiver. But
well. Let me go. I got one from the same team: Jordan Addison or Alexander Madison. Would you take? Which one would you rather have on your team? Just say your team's balanced. Like you don't necessarily need a running
right,
back. You don't necessarily need a receiver. You just need the better player.
I'd probably go the better player. If we're going better, I'd probably go Madison. Because we've seen him have great games. And he went against two really hard defenses. I mean, Tampa Bay is kind of underrated, but he still got 12 points. And
With
Philly
the
is
touchdown.
Philly. But
Yeah.
his next few games, the next week is he's got LA, he's got Carolina, Kansas City,
LA
which
what? Chargers
The
or
Chargers. He's got the Chargers, the Panthers, the Chiefs. Then he's got the Bears. San Francisco is going to be a doozy. He's got Green Bay, Atlanta, New Orleans might be hard. Denver, Chicago, Las Vegas,
yeah,
Cincinnati, Detroit. He's got a
not bad.
pretty squishy schedule coming up, and so yeah, I agree with you. I think if you got him, just hold on. He's gonna be all right. The fumble always scares people. It scared me, and a lot of times when people fumble on national television, they usually end up not having a job eventually. But it's it's things that can be figured out and can be worked out. And it was a lot of defense, and that team does love to throw. We were talking earlier about trading first round picks. I traded a first round. I traded Kirk Cousins for a first round picks. So I traded Kirk Cousins for Jameer Gibbs, and right now it's not really panning out.
Yeah, I understand that. It's still so early, but yeah, that some of them things just do not work out, and that's why Dynasty never veto trades. It could, that was a fair one, but there's some that you look at and you're like, golly, that dude got ripped off, and the next thing you know,
Yeah,
you're you're getting
the other
screwed.
dude. Yeah, the other dude's balling out.
The other dude's straight up balling out. Like, I mean, even your trade with as of right now with Matt, I mean, it looked like you got him good when you traded him, and he gave you Justin Fields. But shit, Justin Fields looks like shit right
He
now.
does. He looks bad right now. Yeah, and Kenneth Walker is doing really good. So I was thinking the exact same thing. And and going to Pickett. Because I traded for Pickett too, and before the season started, after preseason, there was all this hype on Pickett, and honestly, I'm kind of kicking myself for not trading him because I had a trade offer for him. For it was like Pickett for let me see if I can find it real quick because I was gonna trade Levi, and let me see if I can figure out who I was wanting to get, but he was willing to give me a pretty good deal for Pickett, before the season. But I feel like right now it's probably off the table. You know, I can't remember who he wanted to trade for him, but it'll probably come back around. You know, I think Pickett's going to be just fine. But yeah, you can't. I don't think we should overreact on Alexander Madison. You know, I think he's going to be good. And if you're trying to get rid of him, give him to me.
All right. Well, let's talk about some other running backs who got drafted pretty soon, and let's see if you're freaking out. Let's see. I just had him in my head right here. Where was he? Oh, Dameon Pierce. He is the RB. Let's see here. RB 43 right now. He's had 26 carries for 69 yards. That's a 2.7 yards per carry average. He's not getting a lot of targets like people would have expected. The offense, you know, it looks bad like we kind of expected it to look. But what are you doing with Dameon Pierce? Is he a buy low right now, or is he are you freaking out about him like you are about Najee?
I'm not freaking out about Pierce like I am Najee, and the main reason is because there's nobody else on that team that looks as good or better than Pierce, you know? And shit, how many times did CJ throw the ball last week? Let me see. I got him right here. Hold on. CJ threw the ball 44 times in the first week and 47 times in week 2, you know, and it's just going to come down to game script. I think Dameon Pierce is a prolific runner, and he's gonna be good. He's gonna be great, you know. But I think it's just gonna come down to game script, man. And I'm not gonna freak out on Dameon Pierce mainly because you didn't pick him as high as you picked Najee. You know what I mean? And I feel like if you got Pierce, you probably got him in the middle rounds, like 5th, 6th, 4th, possibly. And I think he's still going to be okay. I think Dameon Pierce is going to be okay, mainly for the fact that there's really nobody there that's also could take the job from him. Whereas Najee has got boy breathing down his neck,
So
and Buddy got hot breath.
Would you trade Najee for Pierce right now?
Yeah,
Damn.
man, I probably wouldn't. No, not right now. I wouldn't. No, I'd sit and wait.
What about Pacheco? He's been kind of unstartable too. He's 8 points, averaging 8 points a game, full PPR. I mean, he's got most opportunities on that team, but they also it's kind of like a three-headed monster that he's taking the lead on. I mean, his yards per carry, everything he still passes the eye test to me. But I mean, this is one that I was down on. He wasn't in my top 36 when I did running backs. I was completely out on Pacheco this year. He's the RB 35 right now, 20 carries for 93 yards, still averaging 4.7 a carry. But it just seems to me like he kind of falls in that category where he doesn't get a whole lot of passing game work, maybe 2 receptions a game, and you're going to be probably a little disappointed if he doesn't get in the end zone. And who even knows what running back's going to be on the goal line with that team? It could be Clyde. Jarrett McKinnon is going to be the hurry up offense back, the 2-minute back. So you're missing out on that kind of upside with the pass catching. So I mean, where are you at with Pacheco? I know he's talented. I'm definitely not saying he ain't talented, but where are you at on Pacheco? Can you put him in your lineup right now? Can you start him?
Well, going back to what you said, we all know who the goal line back is, and that's Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce. There is no goal line back. But if there was, I don't know. It's hard to say there. But I came into the year, liking Pacheco, loving Pacheco, because I was on him last year. I was like, mark my words, cousin. Like, you gonna hear his name. over and over and over. But I never thought that he was ever going to be like a bell cow back because that's not how Kansas City works, you know. And coming into this year, Isaiah Pacheco is doing exactly what I thought he was going to do. You know, he's almost got identical numbers from week 1 to week 2. You know, the yards are a little different. He's got 4 more attempts, you know, 2 more passes and no touchdowns. But I don't think you should freak out on Pacheco. I think he's going to be all right. You know, I don't think he's, you know, Nick
I mean, what do
Chubb
you
or
mean by
anybody.
what do you mean by not freak out? Because there's only two questions you ask yourself in redraft when it comes to this: is can I play him in my starting lineup or not? And do you feel
I,
comfortable still putting Pacheco in as your in a flex spot or RB2 spot?
I definitely feel, yeah, yeah, I would, you know, because you want double digits. You know, you obviously want, you know, right around 10 points, but he's getting 7.5 points without a touchdown, you know, and his carries aren't great. He's not getting a ton of targets, but I would feel comfortable putting him in a flex spot. Probably not for my RB2, you know, but if you went heavier on receivers and you know your RB1 is Raheem Mostert and your RB2 is Isaiah Pacheco, I think that's fine. You know, I think he's, like I said at the beginning of the season, he's a dinner roll back. You know, he's got the secured role. You know, he's not the steak dinner, but he's the fucking bread and butter. You know, he's gonna be there. He's got better blocking and he'll have some games that ball out because he passes the eye test. He's got that passion. You know, I wish he was a little. If he was 2 inches taller, you know, maybe I don't know, dude, but I like Pacheco. I like
His
Pacheco.
legs just they look like they're running so fast, and his head,
God,
dude, he just runs different. It looks like he just wants contact. He's just begging for contact when he
yeah,
runs. And he
yeah,
just gives it 100. You can't never say he's laying down out there because he gives it 100% every
dude.
single carry.
So, do you think Isaiah Pacheco is gonna make an appearance on Angry Runs? And if the answer is yes, do you think he'll win it?
He'll make an appearance this year, I'm sure,
Okay.
because he's going to be. I think Damian Pierce will too at some
Oh,
point.
Damian Pierce will definitely make it. He won Angry Runs last year.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he was the recipient. Like I don't know how they vote for who wins it, but yeah, he was the man last year. Angry Runs.
Well, he passes the eye test too for sure for me. But two other running backs I want to talk about who haven't performed. The attempts are there. I put both of these guys in a buy low category. You can tell me if you think different, but Josh Jacobs right now, he is. Let me scroll on down. He's the RB 29. He has had 28 carries, and he's had. Let's see how many targets Josh Jacobs has had so far this year. If I could find it, I want to say that's 9 targets on the year. So, um, he's only averaging 1.6 yards per carry. Last game, like I
Yeah.
said, 9 rushing attempts for -2 yards. He probably was a little, probably overweight, probably not in the best shape. Skipped training camp, blah blah blah. I think Jacobs is gonna get back, not to what he was last year. I don't think he's gonna get that, but I think he'll be a very very solid back end RB1. Um, and I think he's a buy low right now. I'm not sure what you could try to trade to get him, because most people probably think that they're not giving up that early on him either. Um, what do you think about Josh Jacobs?
I think he's definitely a buy low right now because his strength of schedule is in his favor, and he's starting this year almost exactly how he started last year. Except this year his snap percentage is higher, and uh his targets are higher, and rushing
So
attempts are about
he
the
started
same.
this bad last year.
He started last year. He had in week 1 7.8, and in week 2 8.6. This year he had 8.1, 7.4. He had 19 attempts in week 1 this year, 10 last year in week 1. Last year he had 19 attempts in week 2. This year he had 9. But he also played the Chargers and the Cardinals in the first 2 weeks, and this year he played Denver and Buffalo, who are much harder. So I think you should definitely not overreact and buy low. If somebody is freaking out on Jacobs, you should definitely grab him and get him. And I think he's going to end up being just fine. I mean, come week
What's
4,
the ceiling? Do you think his ceiling is as high as it was last year?
yeah, I think it is. I think it is, man. Because I mean, he's
I know,
he's
I know you
it's,
like
it's
offensive line play.
yeah. There's definitely ain't great, but um, I mean, he probably can't do what he did last year. It's hard. It's hard to go bike to bike unless your name's Derek the King Henry. I don't know if he went back to back, but if anybody could do it, he could do it. But I think Josh Jacobs is going to be just fine, and he's definitely a buy low candidate.
All right. I mean, I think that was a little more obvious than this one. You tell me. Miles Sanders right now, 32 attempts on the year, which, I mean, Jacobs' usage has been pretty good. We see David Montgomery just touching the ball over and over. David Montgomery's had 37 attempts on the year. Joe Mixon at 26. James Conner, 37. So he's getting opportunity. He's had 11 targets still. No, wait, that's 11 yards. Sorry. But in the receiving game, is he a buy low right now, or are you just because this one's a little different? I feel like. I mean, the Raiders'
Yeah,
offense isn't good, but damn, dude, like the Panthers, obviously rookie quarterback. Nobody really expected them to come out and be great on offense, but I figured he would be used a little more in the passing game, but watching the games, Chuba Hubbard has been coming in on a lot of third downs, and he has been he's the 2 minute back too. If you watched the game last night, Chuba Hubbard was in a lot at the end of the game.
mm.
So what do you think about Miles Sanders? Are you willing to take the L already on Miles Sanders, or you still are you still in on him like you are Madison? Like, would you rather have Sanders or Madison?
Well, I mean, coming into the draft, I really wasn't super high on Sanders in the first place. I knew he was good, but he kind of brings the same questions that DeAndre Swift brings to me, dude. Because why are they bouncing around to this? I mean, Miles Sanders really hasn't bounced around as. I mean, I guess they're both kind of the same. Like, why is going on? Why are they getting traded? Like, when they do perform, they perform really good, but why are all these intangible things that? Why is this player getting some? Why does it seem like a committee in Philadelphia? Why is Chuba? And it's hard to totally commit to Miles Sanders. He's let
Yeah,
me down in the past, and I think he's a good running back, but
but not great.
not great. Yeah, I don't. He's not somebody I would go out and try to get. You know what I mean? Unless obviously you get a really good deal for him. But running backs are dropping like flies right now. So
Would you trade
you know,
Kyron Williams off of his first couple games for Miles Sanders?
no,
Yeah, I probably wouldn't either. I mean, I
no,
was mentioning his receptions. He only had 20 last year. He's already had 7 7 receptions in the first. I got it wrong. He had more than 11 receiving yards, but he's got 30 receiving yards on 7 receptions in the first 2 games. So, that puts him at a pace, around getting close to the 60 reception mark on the year, which is good. I mean, if you're getting 4 targets a game or 4 receptions a game, close to it, you're gonna. I mean, the upside for receptions is better than it was last year, but also he's not with the Eagles. He doesn't have that offensive line. He doesn't have that touchdown reliability that he had last year. Like, they're not going to be around the goal line that much. I mean, Panthers just don't look all that good. I think you're muted right now.
Right, yeah. And they don't look that great, man. And it's a tough look, but I'm out on Sanders. I didn't really buy into him in the first place. But it's hard to say, man.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about? Do you want to get into tight ends at all, or
somebody I definitely want to talk about is Jahmyr Gibbs, dude. What is he right now? What is he? A buy low? Is he a sell high? Are you nervous about him? What do you think? Because I know David Montgomery's there, and he said it's going to take a while for this injury to heal, essentially, and everybody's kind of taking it as I'm going to be out for a few weeks. What do you think that does for Gibbs? Like, I'm wondering on him.
Well, me personally, I think that one of the guys that I was going to mention post waiver wire, like once it's already ran, and if you got a player you just want to drop, Craig Reynolds is probably not a bad pickup for the next couple of weeks, because I don't personally think that Gibbs is gonna his attempts and stuff will go up a little, but he's not taking the David Montgomery role. That's not what kind of player he is. He's not a big back, and I don't think Dan Campbell wants to use him like that, especially this early in the season. So I'm still really high on Gibbs because I think that his receptions are just going to become I just think he's going to be using that offense a lot in the second half. Like, they're going to get this guy extremely involved. So I'm not worried about him, but I'm looking at him like I'm looking at Breece Hall right now. Like, second half of the year, give it about 3 or 4 more games, and then you might get full-blown. But it seems like everybody on Jahmyr Gibbs is like, this is the week. Like, week 1. Oh, this is the week we get to unload Jahmyr Gibbs, and it wasn't. Then last week it was like, oh, now's the time. And people are just getting their expectations up so high. And then when it doesn't happen that week, they're like, oh, this isn't what I thought. So right. I just think like you're just going to have to be patient with Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, it might be week 7, week 8 before you're seeing some really good potential out of Gibbs. But as of right now, I mean, you shouldn't be desperate enough where even if you're 0-2, like, I don't think you should be desperate enough to say you trade Jahmyr Gibbs for a player who's performing now compared to what's going to be later. Like, I wouldn't trade Jahmyr Gibbs for, like, who's been performing pretty decent the first couple weeks that went down. Like, James Cook, probably not. Not going to trade him for James Cook. Probably not going to trade him for Brian Robinson. Like, I don't think I would do something like that, even though Robinson has been good.
That's actually a good segue into my next player. I got 2 more players I want to ask you about, and that kind of segues into my next one. Would you trade him for Tyler Algier? And
absolutely not.
So you don't think Algier is going to have a good season, or what are your thoughts on Tyler?
I think Tyler Algier is going to be touchdown dependent. And the Falcons run the ball like crazy. I mean, he's getting 14, 15 rushing attempts a game, which is great, and he's still productive. Like, he averages good yards per carry. I mean, he can still catch the ball, but I mean, most people play half PPR, full PPR leagues. In a standard league, which hardly anybody plays anymore, I would probably rather have Algier redraft, but in a PPR, full PPR, or half PPR, I'm going to stick with Gibbs just because I think
Yeah.
the 6 or 7 reception days are coming. Plus,
Yeah.
I mean, if I could just get 15 total attempts out of Gibbs a game, he's going to do
Right.
what Tony Pollard did last year. Tony Pollard
Right.
wasn't. I mean, he didn't even have 250 total attempts on the year last year, and he was the RB8.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Pollard was. So I'm just hoping if Gibbs can get 8 rushing attempts or 10 rushing attempts and 7 receptions, 4 or 5 receptions, like give this man the ball 15 times and he's going to make some good things happen with it.
Right.
That's what
Eventually, he's gonna do something with it. I agree. And the last one I want to touch on, because this is somebody that I was definitely out on, and I'm still not completely convinced that he's great. But do you think Rashad White is somebody? What are your thoughts on Rashad? Do you think he's gonna finish as a top running back or not?
I mean, I had the same opinion I had on him to begin pre-draft, which I had him ranked around the RB 20 range, 20 to 24, I guess, like back in
He's at
RB2.
and he's at 18 right now, so that's
Yeah, I just think the volume is going to be there. I don't love Rashad White as a player. Like I don't think he's crazy explosive or nothing like that.
same.
But the depth chart there is just great. I mean, Sean Tucker, you can take a long shot thinking that he might take over. Which I mean, second half of the year, who knows? But I think Rashad White's going to get enough opportunity. I mean, I really look at him and Madison almost in the same exact light right now. Like
Okay,
if you were
I
to
can see
trade
that.
Rashad White for Madison, it would be like trading player for player.
Right.
I think.
Yeah. No, I feel you on that. I feel you on that. And then, sorry, I'm scrolling and I see one more. So, do you think Zach Moss was a hype, or do you think he's for real this year?
I mean,
Because I mean, it's just one week where he did okay.
I think he was a good pickup for your team as a spot start, but I think Jonathan Taylor is gonna. If Jonathan Taylor doesn't get traded, if he sits out all year, he does not get paid for this season. Like this,
Right.
so Jonathan Taylor's most likely
Coming.
gonna
He's coming
play.
back.
You would think, but also all these running backs getting injured right now. It's kind of like a double-edged sword because you could see from Jonathan Taylor's side, it's like, hey, why would I play and not get a big contract when I could get injured? Like all these, like Nick Chubb and these guys. But the owners are sitting there thinking, why should I pay a running back right now when all of them are getting hurt? So
Yeah.
I mean, is this helping Jonathan Taylor's case or is it hurting Jonathan Taylor's case? Because I can't figure it out.
And I can't either, dude. And that's a question for people who make way more money than us. And I hate to be the guy that's got to make that decision. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't imagine how complicated those contract negotiations are, man. All the things you have to go through and all the things you have to weigh out. Just like in Rogers' contract, like most of the stuff in his contract was persistent on him playing 65% of the snaps throughout the year. So
Yeah.
he's making significantly less than he would have, which I know Aaron Rodgers doesn't care about the money, but when it comes to these running back contracts, like they know they're not here for a long time, they're here for a good time. We know they're here for a good time. Management knows they're here for a good time. And to the outside eye, it seems like, a fuckboy move, how they treat these running backs. But you got to think about it from a business perspective. Say you ran a business that's been in business for 100 years, and you got a product that comes in and it sells good for 3 months out of the year, but then the other 9 months, it's kind of shit. Are you going to put more money into that, or are you going to put more money into this product that sells less every month but sells throughout? You know what I'm saying? Like
more consistent.
Yeah. And so, like, I love running backs. I think teams that run the ball and that utilize their run game are the most successful. And I think running backs are, man, almost not the most important part. I think, but behind quarterbacks, I think running backs are very, very, very important, dude. I really do. And they don't get the recognition they deserve because of the injuries. But if you got that guy, look at the Falcons. I mean,
Yeah.
just
Or the
Bijan.
49ers now. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just totally changes your game if you got that guy. I mean, with I
Derrick
don't know,
Henry
dude.
with the
Look
Titans. Like, would
with
they
the
have ever
Titans.
even had them winning seasons without Derrick Henry? Like, you can't just throw whoever in there and expect them to do what they do. But also, I guess they can look at it from a perspective of, well, we can save at this position and spend on, something else like pass rusher or something like that.
Yeah,
But to go back to Zach Moss, real quick, I had to mention this because I was
good.
thinking that his schedule was rough, but I wanted to look it up. And even if Taylor doesn't come back, this is what Zach Moss's schedule looks like. He's got Baltimore this week, then he's got the Rams, the Titans, who are the hardest team to rush against
They're
this year.
epic. Yeah,
So Baltimore, Rams, Titans, Jacksonville, Cleveland, New Orleans.
that's a gauntlet right there. I mean, that's a hard, and that's just in the first seven weeks.
Yeah. So I would I would probably try to sell Zach Moss right now for
Yeah,
whatever you could get, like Zach Moss for Nico Collins. Give me Nico Collins probably.
punch it. Yeah, punch it. Yeah.
Something like that. I'd do that. But is there any other running backs you want to bring up? We hadn't hit on quarterbacks much. Kirk Cousins, he's the number 1 quarterback in fantasy, and Jordan Love is number 2 right now.
Crazy, right?
What's
Did you?
crazy about that is Jordan Love is the number 2 quarterback in fantasy right now with 29 total completions on the year. Kirk Cousins has 64 completions. Justin Herbert has 50. Patrick Mahomes has 50. So Jordan Love, I mean, this is a fluke. I'm sorry. He's probably going to be. He looks good. Not saying he's not going to be a good quarterback, but for fantasy, this is an obvious fluke for me.
I wouldn't call it a fluke. But I would call it an unsustainable projection. You know what I mean? I
That's the
wouldn't say
definition of
that.
fluke.
No, it's not. A fluke is when you do something that you ain't supposed to be able to do. Like when if fucking Daniel Carson, the kicker for the Raiders, fucking runs it in for a touchdown. That's a fucking fluke. You know what I mean? I feel like
Well,
Jordan Love
this is
is.
something that I don't expect him to be able to do is sustain top 5 QB in fantasy.
Well,
You know,
I kind of disagree. I feel like he is going to sustain that, and I feel like Jordan Love is the truth, and I feel like Jordan Love. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Packers fan, dude. I'm saying this because I'm a football fan, and I've seen quarterbacks come out there in their first start, and it's from what I've seen because the Kansas City Chiefs did the exact same thing with Patrick Mahomes behind Alex Smith. Pat stood there with his hand on his shoulder pads for 2 or 3 years, watching this boy play, and they groomed him, and then they turned him in to the guy he is today. And I think Jordan Love is that guy. I'm not trying to say he's gonna be Patrick Mahomes. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is I think he's gonna be great. And I think he is gonna be a really good. I mean, you got 6 touchdowns, no picks, you know, and
he's also
and
got
you
55% completion percentage, which is the
that
worst that I see. Deshaun Watson's at 55%, but everybody else is in the 60s. So he's like the worst
okay.
completion percentage.
Okay, so he's 5% worse than everybody else, and he's the first time in this offense. All those other quarterbacks you're talking about have been in the league for 4 years or more, playing, starting. And
I'm not hating
just
on
from
Jordan Love at
no, I
all.
know
Like
you're not.
I
I know
think he
you're
looks.
playing
I think
devil's
he looks
advocate.
great for first 2 weeks. I think he looks really good, and the Packers' offense looks like it can move, and that's the reason he has 6 touchdowns is because they are moving the ball and they're getting their receivers in. And this is all without Christian Watson, also. So we failed
Right.
to mention that too. So Christian Watson hasn't.
And Bakhtiari was out, wasn't he?
Bakhtiari, Aaron Jones was out week 2. He's throwing to Jaden Reed, Luke
Yeah.
Musgrave, Wicks, and Romeo
He
Dobbs
looks
right now.
good. In my eyes, he's the truth. I mean, he looks like the next guy, dude. I'm telling you. And I don't say this about a lot of guys.
Go ahead. My bad.
I don't say this about a lot of guys, especially at that quarterback position. But he's on a team that is notorious for having great quarterbacks, and he looks really good, dude. He looks like a good mix between new school, old school, and I'm saying hashtag JLoveTruth, baby.
So let's just do a heat check in Dynasty for Jordan Love. Would you rather have Jordan Love or would you rather have Justin Fields in Dynasty?
Ooh.
That was like the perfect
Justin
game
Fields.
there.
Justin Fields, right? Justin Fields right now.
What about Jordan Love or Bryce Young or CJ Stroud?
J Love.
I think I agree with you on that one.
What about Purdy? J Love or Purdy?
Ooh, that one's tough. I mean, Purdy is like the perfect super flex number 2 quarterback who's probably going to throw for 200 yards a game and 2 touchdowns. And I can see a little more upside with Jordan Love in the future. Probably not this year. I think Purdy will probably outscore him this year. But if I were to say in Dynasty, I think I'd go with Jordan Love just based on the wide receiver talent. The wide receiver talent's awesome in San Fran. But the Green Bay's got a lot of young talent too. And he's already shown that he can work with practically nothing. So I just think the more comfortable he gets with this offense, that he has the higher ceiling to me. That team's going to run through their weapons.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do – he's not going to be asked to do that much except for just distribute the ball around.
Yeah. And but that's only this year. You know what I mean? He gets that this year. You have no expectations. Go out there and just don't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
But if he does good this year, the next year everybody's going to be the hype's going to be on, and then the pressure's going to be there, and that's what it's going to. And that's what separates. That's how the NFL separates the good from the great. Once the defenses start scheming against you, and once they start learning your signs and learning your weaknesses, and they start playing towards that, if you can overcome that, if you can, just like Miami did last week, Tyreek Hill had 40 yards, but you know what they did? They fucking ran the ball. They ran the ball. They counterpunched. They figure out because they knew Belichick was going to shut down Tyreek Hill, and they figured out how to do it. And that's what Green Bay is going to have to do once they figure out how to shut down J Love. They're going to have to get them boys involved. They're going to get and that's going to be what it's going to be. But I feel great about J Love.
What about him or Deshaun Watson in Dynasty?
Jordan.
Deshaun, we'll talk about Deshaun. He looks bad. I mean, Matt's not here right now to defend him and all his orange Clemson love, and Chris isn't here either to defend him. So I'm going to try not to hate on him too much. It's still only 2 weeks, but this is not what a $230 million guaranteed dollar quarterback looks like.
And also, it's not what one of the top 5 one of the top 5 ranked offensive lines looks like either. That's what I was thinking.
Well, they look good in the running game. I mean, Chubb they can run the football for sure.
Yeah, but I feel like their pass blocking is not great.
Well, Deshaun's holding on to the ball too long also. I mean, it's not all on that offensive line. I mean, he looks very indecisive back there. He's not making the best decisions. He looks, I don't know how to say it. He just doesn't look the same as he did in Houston. Like it don't even look like the same player to me.
It doesn't. It doesn't right now. You know it.
How long do you
eh,
give him? How long do you give Deshaun Watson? Because before the season, not tooting my horn at all, because I've definitely been wrong about a lot of these guys. But I mean, I had him ranked as like my QB 16, and everybody else had him about QB 9, which he could. I mean, it's still really early. But after the first 2 weeks, do you see him as, say, you give him 2 more weeks? Just how long do you give him before in a one QB redraft league can you just drop him and start streaming?
I think you gotta give them at least their bye week, which is week 4, 5. And I always say in the NFL, the cream starts rising to the top around week 5 or week 6. You're going 3-2, you're going 5-0, you're going 3-3. And I think everybody has, especially when it comes to quarterbacks, until week 5 or 6, and then I mean, Deshaun Watson is still on average in the first 2 weeks. I mean, he finished the QB5 in week 1 and the 27 in week 2. So he's averaging the QB 16, and that's not terrible. And I don't think I would freak out on him right now. But he definitely doesn't look like the Deshaun from Houston, but there's still a lot of football to play. I think he'll be all right. I think he'll be all right, but it's going to be a lot harder now that they're not going to stack the box for Chubb. They're going to be able to put a spy on Deshaun, and their receivers aren't the best. They really aren't. Elijah Moore is going to have to step up. DPJ is going to have to step up, and
And Joku hasn't done anything.
no, yeah, he's going to have to rely. And I feel like Deshaun Watson's one of those air it out guys, and I don't know if that offense is built around that, and it's just going to take a little bit for them to mesh. But I think by week 6, if he's not within the top, 12, 15 quarterbacks, like it's
Yeah.
it's going to be ugly.
All right. Well, we'll talk about 2 more things. This episode's running a little long, but it's all good. Let's talk about Justin Fields right quick. He's averaging about 18 points a game at QB. He was like the QB. I don't have the numbers. If you want to look it up for me right quick, I want to say it was
Yeah.
like the QB 15 and then like the QB 20 or something like that.
You talking about this year? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
the first
right. Dead
2
on
weeks.
it. Dead on it.
Yeah. So, what do you think about Fields? They're not running him. Like you drafted him. Like me personally, I drafted him because I thought he was going to get 50 yards, 50 to 100 yards a game on the ground. And they're not running him. They're not using his best talent. The coaching staff is incompetent. He is one of the worst pocket passers that you're going to see, period. He's probably the worst pocket passer in the NFL, him and Zach Wilson. So what the hell are the Bears doing, and how long are you giving Justin Fields before you start looking for options? Because shit, this week in Average Joe's, I picked up Russell Wilson, and he's going against Miami, which Miami's going to put up some points. Or should I just stick with Justin Fields going against Kansas City? I mean, I shouldn't have to be thinking about these things this early.
And you don't. You should stick with Justin Fields. You should stick with Fields, and he's doing better through the first 2 weeks than he did last year. He's got 20 more attempts in the first week, and like 18 more in the second week, and
run the ball.
And he's got a few less running yards, and they're trying to transition him into more of a passer, which obviously every team wants to do because they don't want to see the quarterback taking hits.
But this
you
isn't
know.
this isn't even like this isn't Jalen Hurts. This isn't Josh Allen. Like this is a question mark franchise quarterback. Like the Bears. The Bears can draft a quarterback next year in the NFL draft, and nobody would think twice, or nobody would disagree. But the Bills ain't drafting somebody over Josh Allen because he runs or Jalen Hurts or whatever. Like the only way that this guy's Justin Fields is gonna make money in this league and be productive for your team is running the ball, like Anthony Richardson. I mean, what do they expect if they're just gonna make him a pocket passer?
Yeah. I mean, you drafted him with his skill set. You know what I mean? You drafted him for his skill set. And when it comes to that, that's so tough because you draft him. He's got that talent to run the ball, but in the NFL, you want to protect your franchise quarterback. I mean, look at Kyler Murray. You look at Jermichael Vicks. Look at Lamar Jackson is almost kind of an outlier, where he's very good. He's very agile and he's very smart with when to go down and when to not take hits. And Justin Fields, I don't know how many times he's been sacked, but I'm sure it's a lot, and that takes a toll, dude. And that takes a toll. And they're trying to avoid those. They're trying to avoid his hits because they want him for the long haul. And
But
if
do
they
they want
drafted
him for the long haul? Like, do they really? If they're gonna play him like this, what makes you think that the Bears are gonna be like, oh yeah, Justin Fields is our guy?
If they were running him 15 times a game, that to me would think they didn't want him for the long haul.
I'll tell you 100%. If this whole year is reflective of these first 2 weeks that he's had, he is not going to be the Bears starting quarterback next year. Bottom line, because they done lost 12 in a row. They're going to have one of the top picks in the draft next year. They will draft Drake May or Caleb Williams if they're there. They are not sticking with Justin Fields if his play is reflective of what it's been.
But what I'm saying, and Austin, going back to it, like this year's week 1, week 2 is better than last year's week 1, week 2. I don't see
dynasty manager though. Like I get that we're a fantasy podcast and we talk about fantasy, but from a dynasty perspective, I mean, should you try to sell Justin Fields based on the fact that he could be Zach Wilson. So they could bring in, the next big thing and he's not playing.
I don't think so, man. I don't think you should overreact yet. I think he's got Kansas City this week, Denver, Washington, Minnesota, Vegas, and the Chargers coming up. So
sounds like a lot of L's.
It could be, or it could be 3-2. You know what I mean? In the next 5 weeks, or I think it's hard to say. It's hard to say, but I think after, like I said, upon week 6, if he's not looking elite, then maybe you should start freaking out. You know what I mean? And when it comes to selling them high or buying them low right now, I have them in Dynasty, and if somebody offered me, something really good, I would take it. But I'm not going out and trying to find a better Dynasty quarterback right now, because I still feel like he's gonna be good. He's gonna be elite, and I'm not freaking out on Fields right now, but they definitely need to play to his strengths. He definitely made his career, at least in fantasy, from running the ball last year. And God, what was his average yards per carry? I mean,
he was great rushing the ball last year, but they had the first overall pick in the NFL draft. And I mean, I don't know. I'm opposite on Fields. Right. I am overreacting, or I might be reacting right, but I'm definitely on the side of I don't think he's going to be starting in the NFL for the Bears next year. I'll just go ahead and put
wow,
that out now.
wow. I feel like we should put some money on this.
I mean, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I mean, he's just not a good quarterback. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL.
So do you don't think he's even going to get the Cam Newton treatment? Like,
Dude, Cam was so much better.
you think?
I
Okay,
don't have Justin Fields. I don't have Justin Fields' record for his career, but this is not Justin Fields has played a good amount of games um, through his career. Let me look up his record as a starter. He's 5-22. He's played 27 games.
what?
Yes, he's 5-22. He's won. Let's see, completed under 60% of his passes, and he's thrown. Let's see, I think that says 10 interceptions to 7 touchdowns. It can't be right, but that's his starting record though. 5-22. 27
5-22.
games. 27 games is a long time to see what you got, and he ain't got it.
But this is also the ultimate team sport, and one person, just because your team loses their ass off doesn't mean you're a shitty player. And the Bears have been shitty forever, and they've been through quarterback after quarterback after quarterback after quarterback, and they just can't seem to realize that you need an offensive line to be
Hey,
successful in the NFL.
Zach Wilson 7-10 as a starter. Just saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's I'm not what I'm saying is that it's not all his fault, and it's not all Zach Wilson's fault. When it comes to the NFL, everybody has to do their part. You know what I mean? I bet if you put Zach Wilson behind the Philadelphia Eagles, or if you put Justin Fields
How
with
are
the
you not
Philadelphia
freaking
Eagles,
out? How are you not freaking out about Justin Fields and Dynasty a little bit?
because it's a long season, Austin. There's still 15 games to play.
Would you trade Justin Fields for Jared Goff in a first?
No,
I would.
no, I wouldn't. Not in Dynasty, no. No, because I don't overreact like that. I don't overreact. This is week 2, dude.
It's isn't, but that's what I'm saying though. It's not week 2. We have 27 games of Justin Fields, and
Yeah.
the fantasy is good. Like he's had
And
some
that's
good.
what I'm
He
saying.
had a good stretch.
We're not talking about their win-loss percentage. We're talking about Justin Fields last year going from week 6, he scored 21 points in 6, 26 and 7, 30 and 8, 48 and 9, 44 and 10,
Yeah.
25. He was out in the 12th. 21 bye week, 27, 11, 20.
But you can't put any stats up if you're not playing. And I'm just projecting that he might not be playing.
Not be playing why?
After this year, he might not be a starter in the NFL.
There's no way he's. I want to put money on that. There's no possible way in my mind.
I'm not
If
saying it's
Cam,
100%, but if you tell me it's a 30% chance that he won't be starting in the NFL next year, I would trade him for Jared Goff in a first.
I think even if they have another losing season, if he performs well, he'll be fine. He'll be pissed, is what it'll be, and he'll be wanting to fucking go somewhere else.
Well,
But
I don't know. Hopefully, people stuck around a little while for this conversation because this is one of the
yeah,
the bigger rants that I've definitely been on in a while about a player that I have not been impressed with, and a lot of it probably comes because I drafted a lot of them this year, and I'm just all pissy about it.
yeah.
But is
The
there
Bears need an
anything?
offensive line.
Uh, that,
The
that,
Jets need an offensive line. The
yeah.
Bengals obviously need an offensive line. Buffalo, like these quarterbacks that are great, they keep taking these fucking hits, and
Are
and
you
and
freaking out? Are you freaking out about Burrow? Just not in general, but are you freaking out a little bit about Burrow in just this year, redraft wise for fantasy? Like, is he gonna be? He's probably like the number 4, number 5 quarterback go off the board in drafts. The calf injury and they said it was re-aggravated. Not sure if he's going to be in or out next week. Um, don't know how long it would linger. I mean, do you think that this might be just a bad overall pick in your drafts this year, drafting Joe Burrow?
I'm trying not to overreact at week 2, but right now I'm gonna say yeah. I'm gonna say if I drafted Joe Burrow where I drafted him, I'm pissed.
Would you
And
trade Joe Burrow for Kirk Cousins in redraft right now?
yeah,
Okay.
I would. I would right now.
Hmm.
Because Joe Burrow just doesn't look great. You know, it's obvious that injury is affecting him. You know what I mean? And I know they played, division games and that shit's always hard but he doesn't like Joe Smooth, he just got signed a contract, he's out buying boats and this, that, and the other. And, I think he's going to be a very successful quarterback
Yeah.
over his career. But I feel like this year he's not going to do what everybody expects him to be. And that's fine. But if you
Well, couldn't
drafted
you
him in a
just
redraft,
maybe instead of trading him for Kirk Cousins, could you maybe just try to stream some quarterbacks for a little while and then just wait? Hopefully he's fully healthy and you have full blown badass Joe Burrow there from like week eight on for the rest of the year. Or would you? Because I mean, you could definitely get it done. You can go out there and trade Joe Burrow for Kirk Cousins right now. Somebody would want Burrow, but I mean, you could even try to go like Burrow for Cousins and Rashad White or something along
no,
those.
no, no, no. Not right now. Not in redraft. You're not going to get Cousins and Rashad White. Now, honestly, if I had Kirk Cousins and you offered me Joe Burrow for him, I wouldn't do it. Not right now.
Not right
Not
now.
in
You
redraft.
don't think
Not
so?
in redraft. No, no.
Even if you had a second quarterback on your team, like say Anthony Richardson sitting on your bench or Jared Goff sitting on your bench, and you can just play them until Burrow's right.
Yeah, no. I wouldn't. I don't think I would right now. And yeah, and it's just seeing what I see, and but this is the I saw a stat. This is as the last 5 years. This is Cincinnati's fourth 0-2 start.
They start really slow.
So
Sure.
so they do start slow. So we could be a very viable buy low candidate, or but you're not going to sell them. You're not going to sell them very high right now. I don't think. But he could be all right this year, but I really don't want to fuck with it. And I got Jamar Chase in one league, and I'm a little nervous.
Yep. If what's his name? I don't even know the backup's name. Tyler Brown or something Browning. I forget. His last name's Browning, I think. But and then it's either going to be that or a hobbled Joe Burrow, which hasn't looked good in the first couple weeks. So you're probably going to be. This might be a little 3 week bummer or something like that for the next couple weeks for the Bengals. And panic meter's a little higher with the Bengals right now, I'm sure,
I'd say
especially
it's about 50%.
with the injury with Joe Burrow and real NFL football. I would say, I'm sure Bengals fans are very concerned that they could start off 0-4, 0-5.
Yeah.
And be in real deep shit. But is there anything else we left out tonight that you wanna talk about? Or man, we covered a lot of things. We hit the waiver wire, we hit a couple some injury news, talked about unfortunate events with Nick Chubb. Anything we missed that you want to talk about, Ian?
No, not necessarily. I mean, maybe like nah. Yeah, no, I think we touched on everything. I think it was a good episode. We got to talk about a bunch of stuff, and might have harped a little long, but yeah, no, I feel good about it.
Yeah, me too, man. This was a fun episode. I enjoy. I'm hoping we can do a little bit more of these with Matt in here. Get some Matt and Chris and Phil and whoever wants to hop on with us. Get everybody back in here and have some episodes like this where we just talk about the landscape of football overall. Because we love talking our fantasy, but it's fun just to talk about regular NFL football too.
Yeah,
And
it's good. It's good to actually be able to talk about football with something to actually talk about. We've been all summer
statistics and
booking.
stuff.
Yeah,
Always,
just assuming and saying how we feel, but now we actually got some rock hard evidence that we can go off of, and in these first 2 weeks, especially going back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, when it comes to the waiver wire, you're gonna the first 2 weeks is most important. You know what I mean? That's when you're gonna find the league changers and the championship winner guys. Throughout the rest of the year, you're gonna be able to pick up guys to fill in here and there. But right now, after this week, you probably missed out on the guys that are gonna be best of the best. But
like players you thought were going to be starters, aka Cam Akers, and that really aren't the starters. Like, there's no way to know before the season until you get these first couple games and you see the splits and you see the
actually,
and stuff like that.
Speaking of that, I do want to talk about the Bears running back, Roshan
Johnson.
Yeah, how do you feel? Do you think he's a good waiver wire pickup for like later in the year? Do you think he's going to end up taking that job, or
I mean,
this is the last one?
We mentioned him on the last waiver wire episode, and I think he's a stash right now. I think if you got a spot open that you say you got I don't know, Tank Bigsby or something like that. Like, I would probably drop Tank Bigsby for Roshan, or you get Marvin Mims, blah blah blah. These receivers,
Right.
John Mechie, players like this that have obviously are not getting the playing time that you expected. Even Zach Charbonnet, probably. I might hold on to him if
I was about to say I would hold on to Charbonnet because
but you can drop him though. I'm not saying you have to.
No. If Walker goes down, Charbonnet is going to be the number one waiver wire. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't. But you're right. Like,
if you have to, you can. Like, if it's a choice between Charbonnet and Jerome Ford, you can drop Charbonnet.
You definitely can. But you just got to know that if Kenneth goes down, that's going to be the number one. But you can't think, and that's the thing about fantasy football, dude. Like, when we go and we talk about stuff and we analyze, you can't put injuries into it at all. You know what I mean? You can't think
project
about.
injuries.
You
You
can't
just can't.
project injuries. No. So it's you can speculate all day. Well, if he went down, this guy would do this. He would this. No, we're talking about this player being healthy because we want everybody to be healthy. We want them all to stay healthy, and we want everybody to play a full season and be happy and healthy. And it just makes it better, But injuries make fantasy football chaotic, and it's why we love it and why we hate it. But I think it was a good episode, and I think I got to get out of here. And I think that I'm excited football is on. I can't stand it, you know.
Can't stand not having football on tonight. Is that what you're saying?
I think there should be a game on Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, and Sunday. But that's just me. I mean, I've written letters to the NFLPA and they're back. So we're trying to get this 4 days a week thing going on, but might not happen. But you know what? I did like the doubleheader. That was kind of cool. But you did have to stay up until like 1 o'clock to watch the other game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I think about the doubleheader. I would rather just put it on, put the next one on Tuesday instead. So have one on Monday, one on Tuesday.
Right.
So
I mean,
we're
we're
gonna have a game tonight.
yeah. We're all about having more games during the week. I'm sure the teams love having less time to prepare for the next week, but it'd be way more enjoyable for us.
Yes, sir. Well, I guess we're gonna go ahead and get on out of here, man. I had a good time. I had a great time tonight talking some football. It was a good episode, and just appreciate everybody, all the people that listen. Tell your friends, tell your wife, tell everybody you can. And like I said, we just appreciate it, and we're gonna go ahead and get on out of here. Ian, you got anything else to say? Because I'm out for tonight.
I do got something else to say. Bijan Robinson is amazing.
Yes, he is. Well, we are out. Thank you for listening to the Cruise Dynasty podcast. Matt will probably be on next time if you really missed him, which we did, and I'm sure everybody else did too. So we out of here.
Peace.
Peace.